go. Here we go. I am rusty as all get out. And there's so many updates. It's almost as though I'm relearning everything from scratch. So bear with me, hence the elevator music. And I just want to verify that the stream is connecting seamlessly from the streaming service through at least Rumble. I gotta tell you, I must be some type of insane, stupid, done lost my mind to sit here today, try to uncover some of the information I have to share. There's a whole bunch. But in lieu of Patriot no longer with us, there's clearly no lengths evil is not willing to go to in today's climate. And here's a man, a warrior, that simply was stolen from us for words. Unbelievable. Let's kill the elevator music. And, man, should we just kick off more enlightening things? But we're going to go over a lot today. A little about Charlie, what he started uncovering, a little about his death, and a whole bunch about the systems that be. And I want you to ask yourself, do you trust our government? Do you trust the FBI, CIA, any three-letter agency? Because without trust, that is a world we shouldn't accept to live in. The only guarantee with that is we do not have a secure future for ourselves or our children, so something must be done. There's a lot of gray areas regarding Charlie himself, so many other situations, and the fact of the matter is, we're not really ever going to fully know in this life. And that in and of itself is capturing something even grander, that we no longer accept that unacceptable. Okay. That being said, let's officially kick things off, shall we? Welcome to a Muzzle Chat. My goodness, am I rusty. It's been a while. I apologize. I'm not going to make this about me, but I'm going to fight like hell that we maintain our freedom of speech and we maintain a level of health that we can utilize speech on our own behalfs to secure our futures. We lose either one of those, and it with personal experience and challenges I've been experiencing with other biological warfare, and I'm seeing it run rampant pretty much to a degree or many within so many loved ones in my life. And enough is enough. Okay. I am 10 years Charlie Kirk's elder. Unbelievable what this man was able to do in 31 years. It is nothing but admirable, mad respect. Now, I have my reasons to walk away from Charlie Kirk's content and not be an avid follower, and we'll get into some of that. But that's all irrelevant in regards to who he was and who he stood for. We all get things wrong, and we're forever going to get things wrong. This is a forever work in progress in this life. But we become cowardly. I don't know many men, the strongest I've ever known, to seek out tension and contentious kind of conflict and try to find resolve. I don't know anyone that kind of mastered that level of communication more than Charlie Kirk himself. We have truly lost a warrior of light, of good, irregardless as to how we get things wrong. Brings to mind that scripture of pointing out the specks in others' eyes when we have planks in our own. In order to see clearly for ourselves, it's best we focus on removing those planks. Now, this little clip kind of sums up as to why Charlie put himself in these really challenging situations. Let's go ahead and give this a listen.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults. The left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put it on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity. I go around universities and have...
Wow. That really sums up a lot as to the why. His character. He wants to avoid essentially a world that is full of threats. We won't turn against her to avert civil war, destruction, and so much. There's so much to say, so much to dive into. As you could see, there's a lot queued up. Let's just go through a lot of this because so many of these individuals literally have put in the hard work. Let's just let them help connect some of the dots for us. Once again, do you trust our government? For me, the fact we cannot and mostly do not trust our government and all its agencies tell us what we must do. And I'm not calling for violence. Our founding fathers understood tyranny, oppression, monarchs, enslavement, and without freedom of speech. So just how crucial that is. True oppression. Our founding fathers themselves couldn't have stood against the 2% T-tax. It was all those that fled oppressive lives that understood it at the core. Dare I say, we no longer even understand the meaning, the true meaning of freedom. We like to throw out the hollow projections as though we do, and as we live in a free country. Now, don't get me wrong, we got some freedom still. But when situations like this take place and time again, because Charlie Kirk isn't the only one, let's not, the worst lie to be told is to ourselves. And there's a pivotal moment right here, right now. We've turned the blind eye to so many egregiously unacceptable situations post-pandemic, so many other things, and tend to just focus on what doesn't matter and seek the remedies to the situation. That's got to stop. Health Ranger. Love it. MAGA, right? The FBI lied about Jan 6. Lied about the Hunter laptop. Lied about Russia. Lied about Hillary Clinton's emails. Lied about the kidnapping. 9/11. Oklahoma City bombing. Waco, Texas. The list goes on and on. But the point he really drives home, but by God, they must be telling the truth this time. We got him. Are we literally that What is it? Are we sold on so much convenience that we won't even really do the research? Once again, we don't trust the systems. Does that mean we're ever going to get to the truth? No, but all that's irrelevant. We must obtain a world where there is a level of trust. It's just like without trust on a personal relation, how far is that going to get? This is powerful. And a huge part as to why title today's episode, What I Did. Charlie Kirk's death exposed the biggest scam in history. It's a little lengthy, but it's worth every minute. This man does such a fantastic job, and I am surprised it's still up on YouTube, and that's why I want to play a lot of this content. You got to understand so much of the purpose. It's not just to provide the links and try to help share information, whether truthful or not. Do not take my word for things, folks. I'd say there's a pretty stark difference between people that are actually genuinely trying to seek the truth and the true propagandists and the liars trying to run under the blanket of deception. The deceitful side would never take that stance of, do not take my word for it. Do your own research. They try to keep you only plugged into the propagandist outlets, and this is what it is. And if you're not, they use all these threats, all these labels, call you a racist, call you a sexist, just all the different things. Anti-Semitic. Oh my gosh, we got to get away from the labels. Please call me all the things in the book. I'm not going to take offense to it. That's hilarious. That is a part of the psyop that we're falling prey to, hook, line, and sinker, fighting against one another, as this man's going to point out, because we aren't each other's enemies. In fact, we have more in common than the rulers at B. And there's nothing conspiratorial about it. If you actually want to sit through this episode, we're going to kind of uncover some of the proof that there's nothing tinfoil hat about this, that there is a ruling class, and they're the ones magnifying this, the lens on one another, versus the true oppressors, our true enemies, the true evil surrounding us in this world today. All right, that's enough. Let's dive into this. This is so powerful. Get out your notebooks, because I would love for you to send a muzzle chat. You can email me directly, muzzlechat@gmail.com. I would love your takeaways. I will post them and get them out there. And any of your questions regarding any of this stuff. So, back just before I hit play, we need the historical record, not just for the links, because so many of the links, especially on these topics, is already gone. And I wanted to sit on a lot of this information, absorb as much as I can, and we keep falling for the false narratives, and then they control the information, and somehow they're able to maintain a freaking lie time and time again, versus us actually pulling the truth together. So at least capturing it here provides, whether it's just a segment of today and we can no longer find some of the content tomorrow that we go over here today, that you could utilize this very episode through the graces of Rumble still being more so free speech. There's still some question marks. Side note, we must do a better job supporting free speech platforms instantly. Because if Rumble were to fall today, like YouTube has fallen years ago to all this propaganda and suppressing truthful information, we need to be able to jump. I mean, the masses are still on YouTube versus Rumble. You see where I'm getting at? We're never going to be a free people unless we're supporting free speech platforms. And we should already be geared up mostly on Rumble, and geared up for if and when Rumble falls, that we transition into the next free thing.
Charlie Kirk is dead, and it exposed something vile.
Yes, very vile. I just want to let you know, please text me, email me, message in the chat. If there's any sound issues, want to ensure quality streaming through and working out the bugs. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
And horrifying that I want to share with you right now, just kind of candidly. He was murdered while he's speaking in public to a group of college kids. And there's one part of this that I think should horrify you to the deepest parts of your very soul. Instead of a universal outrage, instead of every decent person saying this is insane and this is wrong, the internet seemingly lit up with these celebrations and cheers and memes, and people actually laughing and celebrating the murder of a man because he wore a different political jersey. So let that sink in for a second. And I don't think any of this is about Charlie Kirk, the person. And I don't think it's about whether you liked him or hated him or didn't even care. I think it's about the fact that political murder is somehow just another headline nowadays. And we scroll right past it. There is a whole new low for where we could go. And you have people online cheering like it's their team winning a Super Bowl. And what you're seeing is an evil, evil mask slipping. This is a signal. And it's a signal that we, and I do mean we, all crossed into something that is a lot darker than just politics. This right here, what we're seeing, is what happens when violence becomes part of a political conversation. When actual TV networks air over and over clips that encourage people to see the other side not as neighbors that we might disagree with, but as enemies that need to be destroyed, as the threat to society. And
we must humble ourselves and seek full meekness and accountability and stuff to really seize the glory and opportunity for advancement and growth, even within ourselves. I myself have egregiously fallen prey to so much of the propaganda and lies and programming. I'm so grateful for this gentleman. I'll try my best not to jump in too much because this is beautiful.
Seen it, I have no doubt. We all have seen this. People in the media saying these people are a threat, these people are dangerous, maybe some violence is justified, and it's not fringe anymore. This is mainstream. And there are thousands of these clips out there aired to millions of people, kind of nudging, suggesting, maybe planting seeds that maybe a fist, maybe a bullet is a legitimate form of political debate.
You resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck.
Biggest terror threat in this country.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
A lot of people don't have the attention span to maybe stick with this, but I pray that you do, because I'm going to expose something here that's going to change everything for you if you stick around. But here's the irony, and what I think is a absolute concrete law of history. It's concrete law. The minute that your ideas require violence to enforce or spread, they're already completely bankrupt. Every tyrant, every failed ideology, every social collapse starts the exact same way. The debate dies, then violence takes the place of debate. And you can't argue with a gun. You can only kill with it. And when killing is the substitute for a conversation, society as a whole starts falling off a cliff. And we all, myself included, we all have been sold the biggest con of our entire life. And this is that the problem is left versus right, or Republicans versus Democrats. And that is the distraction fireworks show that they want us screaming about while they're doing something else. And this is a magician's trick. And I'm about to really show you what Charlie, God rest his soul, has kind of exposed here. If you turned on cable news today, you go in your living room, turn it on, maybe you scroll social media, what are you gonna see? The absolute fringe. They're gonna show you the loudest, dumbest, most cartoonish people from the other side blasted in your face 24/7. You're not being shown your neighbor or your coworker or the mom next door who votes differently. You're being shown a bunch of professional lunatics that are handpicked to make you think one thing. And the one big thing that they want you to think is oh my God, these people are insane. They are the enemy. That's the reason that we're going downhill. And none of this is an accident. This is so good. Word for word, textbook psychological operations. And military psyops manuals literally describe how you isolate a target audience, then you pump them full of a bunch of outrage, you create a tribal us versus them identity. This is straight out of a psyops textbook. So why would we want to do this? Or why would psyops want to do this? Because once you're locked into tribal thinking, you're going to swallow anything. You're going to believe any lie about the other side. You're going to cheer when other people suffer. You'll excuse things that you would never excuse in your own neighborhood if you watched it right in front of you and it was one of your neighbors. This is exactly the playbook on how you get otherwise decent, kind people laughing at a murder on the internet. That is how you radicalize a country without firing a shot. And let me tell you something that you're not supposed to think about right now. You share more in common. You share more with somebody across the aisle than with a billionaire donor or some media executive pretending to speak for you. I don't think they want you to see that. They need you divided. They have to have you blind and full of rage, because a united, sane, connected public is the one thing that they actually fear. So how does a normal person, just a regular person, a guy who loves his kids, pays his bills, maybe argues politics at Thanksgiving, how does he turn into somebody who cheers at the assassination of a political opponent on the internet? This does not happen overnight. It is a formula, and I'm going to lay it out for you very plain right here. Number one is isolation. And this is where you don't just disagree with people anymore. You're told not even to interact with them. You don't have friends on the other side. Don't date them. Don't work with those people. You need to cut them out of your life. That is step one. And if you're paying attention, that's also step one of joining a cult. So step two is echo chambers. You surround yourself only with opinions that sound just like yours. Social media makes damn sure of this. And algorithms serve you more of what already pisses you off. And this has been proven and documented in research. So that rage gets recycled and concentrated like moonshine, like a moonshine still. And if you haven't caught on yet, this is step two of building a cult, a dangerous cult. So step three here is the tribal script. This is the us versus them narrative. Your side is righteous, their side is evil. Every single issue is framed like a holy war, and it doesn't matter if it's taxes or healthcare. It's suddenly life or death, and it's good versus evil. And if you add outrage and righteous superiority, and our brain chemistry starts going bonkers, crazy, that cocktail makes people feel morally justified in hating and silencing and celebrating violence. That is true radicalization. That's how you turn regular people into basically a sleeper agent without them even knowing. The bad news is that what I just said is only the beginning, and it's happening on both sides of the imaginary aisle. Here's the truly horrifying part. All of this, it's not just a result of some advertising and algorithms. This is deliberate, and I would stake my reputation on it. This is not just some accidental byproduct of politics. This, what we're seeing right here, is engineered step by step to keep you outraged and blind and keep you just kind of stabbing and punching at shadows. All the while, real power, the people who profit from division, stay completely untouchable. So keep this in mind while we're talking. You have more in common with someone who voted different than you did than the people that you see parading their narratives on TV. Please keep that in mind forever if you're able.
Yes, forever. That's one to just write down and ponder, pray about, research.
An absolutely brutal truth that nobody really wants to face. Assassinations that, especially like we saw with Charlie Kirk, assassinations are not usually about stopping some kind of evil. They're about stopping ideas. You don't kill somebody because their argument was weak. You silence them because you were terrified that their words are working. on people. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. He wasn't murdered because he was irrelevant and he had bad ideas. He was killed because his vision of racial and economic unity and equality was gaining traction in the country. If you look at President Kennedy, JFK, he wasn't taken out because he had no power or had crappy ideas. He was killed right as he started poking holes in this weird, dark system's grip on our war and defense and secrecy. Mr. Rabin, this guy, Rabin, I think, assassinated in Israel. Nobody did it because he was a joke or because he was a laughingstock. He was killed because he was pushing in Israel for peace, and peace threatened power. Peace threatened power. History is unbelievably clear on this. If debate dies, when open conversation gets replaced with suppression or intimidation and ultimately violence, society walks into a death trap.
Just like Charlie understood.
So the ideas that require censorship or intimidation or blood to survive, they are 100% of the time poison. An idea that can't survive in the sunlight has to live in the shadows. And that is the death spiral that we are in if we don't stop this shit right now. So let's look at the other hand in this magic trick. Remember we talked about there's some misdirection going on here. For decades, the press, the media was supposed to be our watchdog. They're going to find all the facts. They're going to hold the powerful accountable. They're going to keep people informed. And again, you can see this with your own eyes. It's not right versus left. Look closely at the media. It's not right versus left. This is darkness versus light. The media is a circus tent with a lot more in common to a casino. This is a propaganda machine just churning out outrage. Let me just tell you exactly how this works. Facts are boring to people. Outrage is more likely to sell. It's more likely to keep you looking at the screen. That's their metrics. That's what they get paid based off of. So instead of showing you some kind of reality, they're showing you this carefully curated nightmare reel of the absolute worst of the other side. They're not giving you the whole picture. They're giving you the most extreme clips that they can find because they know that you're going to watch. They know that you're going to get pissed off when you see it all, and you're going to come back for more tomorrow. In fact, to me, if I'm very honest, if something doesn't fit their narrative, it is completely ignored. But if a story can be kind of twisted into a blame game, then it is. So they're not showing you reality in any sense. They're showing you a story designed to keep you loyal to your tribe, addicted to whatever their version, twisted horror movie version of reality really is. And what's truly disgusting, what I am genuinely nauseated by. We tend to think, oh yeah, the media is trying to sell ads for some pharmaceutical stuff, and they're trying to sell some car commercial breaks and things like that. That's not it. This is more about distraction. The reason is, while they get you frothing at the mouth over some clip of a protester screaming nonsense, the real enemy to all of us, these entrenched people that you have nothing in common with whatsoever, who decide the narratives, they bankroll politicians, and they write the rules. And you know that they win no matter who wins, right or left. You know that they're the ones getting the checks. They're laughing at how stupid we are. So let's stop with the doom and gloom for a second here. And let me just kind of bring this back. If you strip away all of the slogans, all the hashtags, the little talking points of the media, what do regular people want? What do regular people, you and your neighbors, even the people that voted differently than you? We want our kids safe. We want a roof that doesn't leak. We want food in the fridge. We want a job that doesn't crush our frickin' soul. And we want some goddamn honesty from the people who claim to represent you, to represent us. And guess what? That guy that you don't like with the bumper sticker down the street, he wants the same thing. The woman with the MAGA hat at the grocery store that you thought was an idiot, she wants the same thing. The mom who is too busy working 3 jobs to even care about politics, she wants the same thing too. But what do they not show you on TV? What is the one thing? It's that you have that much in common with the people who voted different than you. They will never show you that. They show you the screaming protest.
That in and of itself, folks, is proof that it's not tinfoil hat conspiratorial thinking about this grandeur ruling class, about a cabal, an Illuminati, a synagogue of Satan, select individuals seemingly. This is proof. he's hitting out of the park. I love it. It's like every time I re-listen to this, there's more I absorb from it on a deeper level even. And I'm grateful for that. How many people already up to this point have people need to hear this message? Well, if it's without my interruptions, the link is in the description below to this very episode, as well as much more. Trying to create that momentum and level of organization we have been missing this whole time. And I need your help on getting organized and everything. We need your voice. With Charlie no longer with us, this is that pivotal moment. How many more people are going to step up to fill those shoes and understand the depths of dire need we're in this moment in time? I call upon everyone, because it's as one. Collectively, we can make all the impact. We hold all the cards as a people. Founding fathers understood this. That's why they put the power in our hands. It's why so many of the freedoms and constitutional rights are getting trampled upon, and not just by previous administrations, this one as well. Let's not fall prey to idolatry and a false sense of worship. Now, do I still have hope for this administration? Yes. We must, to a degree, but the only way because this is what it is, and this is what I was worried about with this administration, that too many people would kick their feet up on the couch and solely rely on them. And if we collectively don't ramp up the pressures, this entity will ramp up the pressures. And it depends. If the pressure's greater from we the people, who does the current administration respond to? The people. If it's greater from a very powerful structure that lives today, and a people and an evil is greater than we the people, they are going to answer to them. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but why is MAGA, making Israel great again, more important to this administration than MAGA? I don't have to walk through it all. We've seen it. And that's running under a lot of deception and twisting a lot of scripture. We'll dive into that a little more on this very episode, but more importantly, in even more depth, futuristically, given I'm mortally given that opportunity. So let's continue.
With the purple hair, threatening to burn a bunch of stuff down. They show you this red-faced conspiracy guy spitting at the camera, talking about crazy stuff. They show you the absolute fringe, because fringe pisses you off. Fringe makes you hateful and angry. Fringe makes you think that the other half of the country has lost its freaking mind. There are absolute real studies on this. There's hard data proving that these algorithms and the media deliberately push exactly what's going to piss you off. Because the more enraged you are, the longer you're going to stay hooked. And they're literally feeding you a diet of enemies instead of neighbors. They're programming you to see the world through some kind of warped carnival funhouse mirror, where these loudest, weird ass 1% of extremists look like 160 million people, and it's not. It is a lie. It is a lie. And if that's a lie, then let me say one thing that's true. And let me give you the truth here. You and that weird uncle that you argue with at Thanksgiving, you're not enemies. You're both being played. You're both being manipulated. Yes. And the second that you realize that, the second that you look across the aisle and see a fellow human being instead of some caricature cartoon, is the moment that the scam starts to collapse. And I think I know what you might be thinking here. So if it's not left versus right, then who the hell is pulling all these strings? Who benefits? So let me ask you, who benefits from you hating your neighbor? Because let's be honest, regular people don't profit from this chaos.
Write that one down. Seek out who's benefiting. That is a powerful question that will lead us all down paths of truth.
Regular people don't. but someone does. And that someone is what I personally call the covert elite, because we have elite and then we have covert elite. And these aren't like a bunch of Looney Tunes cartoon villains in some underground lair. These are CEOs and mega donors to political campaigns. And you notice how they donate to both sides? These are political lifers, media conglomerates. These are the people who cash big ass checks no matter who wins the election. They operate on both sides of the aisle because the sides pay out. They don't care about your values. They don't care about your family or your future. They care about one thing, and that's control. And let me tell you, division is the cheapest, most effective tool ever invented for that. Look at how psyops are described in military doctrine. You identify your target audience, you feed them carefully selected information, and you push their emotion until their behavior changes. This isn't theory. That's written down in black and white. And it's the same exact playbook that's being used on you and me, my family, my parents, all of us. Except this time the battlefield isn't Afghanistan, it's not some country in the Middle East. It is your living room. It's your Twitter feed. It's your nightly news. It's right here where you're looking at my face, whatever device you're watching this on. This is the battlefield. This is why both parties, you're hearing them scream about each other nonstop, but they never really seem to touch the things that matter. And you ever notice how there's always money for war, but there's never money to fix our roads? You notice how billionaires always seem to fund both sides of the elections. And if you've ever noticed, if you take a good look, corruption is a bipartisan issue. That's not incompetence. So whatever it is for the elites, they need you locked in this tribal, us versus them, tribalistic warfare. Because if you ever woke up and you started to realize that you share more in common with the other side than a single millionaire donor on your own side, the entire game starts to collapse instantly. And I think if you realize this, you'd stop fighting each other. You'd start realizing that the right versus left is fake. And I think that purely terrifies them. So who knows how long this video is going to last on YouTube. But let me be crystal clear about one thing. The real enemy isn't your Democrat neighbor with the yard sign that pisses you off. It's not your Republican uncle who posts stupid memes on Facebook. The real enemy is entrenched power. And it's an entrenched power that thrives on one piece of fuel, and that fuel is chaos. The real enemy is those people who profit when you are divided and distracted, and most importantly, when you are dehumanizing your fellow Americans.
We all need to hear this daily to not fall prey to these division tactics, to the dang labels, the constructed left versus right, red versus blue, Dem versus Republican. We all fall prey to it. Yes, some people truly believe, so you can use that terminology to expose, but at the point you're not exposing, you're giving more validity to the very divisive tactics evil has stood up, whether it was originally stood up organically or constructed to have this type of psychological impact. Irrelevant. It is 100% having that psychological impact and being used to our detriment. And it is a rot, a toxicity that is deteriorating this country, this world, dividing us all against people we have so much in common with. Christian against Christian even. Whatever label you run under, we got to walk away from the labels. I don't even like using the terminology because I see Christians out there doing very deceitful things, so I don't like to identify as a Christian anymore. I like to simply, on a more personal basis, talk about the amazing Jesus Christ and the examples he's left for us. And irrelevant, the truth or this or that, I think it's those labels that even turn people off. But I seek that path, that message, that example Jesus left for us and so many others. And in a lot of ways, even though Charlie Kirk, I believe, got a lot of things wrong and fell for Christian Zionism, whatever, what you put the proper label to it, what does it matter? We all fall under the deception tactics of the evil one here. And my goodness, we are living in a very fallen world. Let's continue this because he wraps it up very powerfully. I hope you're gaining some notes. And let's not be afraid to share this. Bring more people in. Let's get this out. Once again, whether it's through UNMUZZLED chat, whether it's through just all the links that are provided, but please follow UNMUZZLED chat, all the links below, Facebook, Instagram. Instagram is probably my least, what would we say? That's the least active account we have. It's mostly X and Rumble and Facebook a little bit. So just click the links, because if you're not, it doesn't catch your fancy, these long format podcasts, well, but you can feel the importance. I mean, share this along as you can, and join us as you can, but follow on X, because those are all snips and just trying to get to the bottom of it. And I'd appreciate not just your support, but input. So whatever the things, follow, and let's just, it's creating that organization and community we all need.
Never about left versus right. It
Have an
was
impact.
always about the people versus the powerful. So here's the starting point. It's just sanity. Just plain, everyday, common sense sanity. And ask yourself, do you genuinely want political opponents murdered in the streets?
No.
Do you want your neighbor dragged through the mud because they voted differently? Of course you don't, because you're a sane human being. And that means that you're okay. And sanity right now is the most rebellious act that you can commit in this country for right now. Wow. Sanity is refusing to let CNN or Fox News or Twitter decide who your enemies are. It's looking across the aisle that's probably imaginary and saying, you know what, I disagree with your ass, but you're not the devil. Sanity is truly openly saying violence is not politics. Violence becomes the death of politics. And true sanity is seeing just the weird idiots on the news and realizing that's not the norm. That is a cartoon that's curated for you. And the second that you stop playing the outrage game and you refuse to cheer for blood, which I hope you didn't do, you're already breaking the spell if you're there. I genuinely believe in my heart that sanity is contagious. And when one person refuses to take the bait, the echo chamber starts cracking a little bit. 10 people refuse, it starts breaking open a little bit more. And let me be super clear here. When millions of people, if this were to happen, or were to refuse, the machine will collapse. I guarantee it. We don't need permission to stop being pawns on the board. The minute that you decide right now that you will not be programmed into hatred, then you have started to win. And that's the first step to being sane. And it starts with you. Mr. Charlie Kirk, his death was a mirror for all of us. And it's a mirror showing us how that we have fallen, because when we see murder being celebrated, when we see neighbors that are treated like enemies, that's the signal. And I think the good news here is that the machine only works if we feed it. It only runs on our clicks and our outrage and our willingness to see half of this country as a horrifying monster. If you starve this, it's going to die. It's as simple as that. Just think about your neighbors. Look at the people around you. Your neighbors, your co-workers, the parents at your kids' school. Do they really look like these dipshits that you see on TV and on social media? Do they actually match these memes and all the screaming clips and stuff? Hell no. They look like you. They look like me. We're tired and overworked. We're worried about bills. We're praying for a future that isn't just bonkers, batshit crazy. That's the America that cameras don't show you, because if they did, you'd stop hating people. You'd start seeing reality. So here's the pledge. Here's my one thing that I want to give to you here. And you can say this pledge out loud if you need to. I will not let anything electronic decide who my neighbor is. I will not let political violence become normal. I will no longer let propaganda tell me who to hate. I will never cheer for blood. I will choose sanity. I will choose unity. I will choose to see the humanity in people before I see their politics. And if enough of us take that stand, the whole entire rotten, nasty structure starts to fall, because the truth is very simple. There are more sane people than there are psychopaths. What we're seeing online is fake. There are more of us than there are of them. And the second that we remember that, the second we refuse to be divided against each other, which is fake, the game is permanently over.
Right.
And I say this as the brainwashing expert and the psyops expert. The choice is absolutely ours. Right now, do we keep this programming? Do we keep going? Do we keep letting them program us into sociopaths? Because that's what's happening. Well, my previous video right before this one was about this. Or do we break the script and take back our sanity and just finally remember that we are one people, we're not two tribes. And I want you to remember this.
There it is.
If something online pisses you off, now you know for sure that you are witnessing social engineering. That's all that is. And let me end this with a quote from Martin Luther King. The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder the hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I love you. Please, please, God, send this to somebody that you know.
Yes, please. Wow. Very powerful. We continuously are falling prey to the labels. I admit, I've been there. I still will be there. It's really hard to see past all this and keep the lens of seeing humanity and others. Okay, I'm already way past. I don't know how. Holy smokes. I believe that really sets the stage, though, properly to decipher information and not be falling for the propaganda. There's so much about Charlie Kirk's death that reeks to high heaven. And they want us, I believe, already to be convinced and believe in these lies. This was a full-blown operation, and there are fingerprints all over it, and we do not need special equipment to see the fingerprints. So, before we dive into more of the information, kind of questionable things, and some of Charlie Kirk's recent messages that I believe led to the threat level of that man increasing, and these rulers that be couldn't allow that to continue, because unlike the fringe Tucker Carlson, is they're able to like label him, and Candace Owens, so many others, Charlie with TPUSA had this level of organization with our next generation and young minds. They couldn't allow them also to start asking these questions. This kind of cues up. Let's keep
Charlie
going.
Kirk is shot in the neck from 200 yards away, right in the jugular vein. And as people are running away, the police somehow find this guy who was a patsy. He faked the whole thing to divert attention from the real shooter on the rooftop 200 yards away. Then we find out that the shooter managed to escape without a trace. No security camera footage. No one saw him on the campus. Moments after, though, the shooting takes place, you have Benjamin Netanyahu who comes out and tweets about this before anyone else, before Trump even, the personal friend of Charlie Kirk. Then a few moments later, you have Benjamin Netanyahu come out and say that I was speaking to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago. I invited him to Israel. What? You invited him to Israel after he was saying all these things about Mossad, about Gaza, about Iran, and he was getting all this flack for having Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith speak at TPUSA. All of your Hasbara agents were attacking Charlie Kirk, and you decided to stop your schedule, bombing 7 countries in the middle of this political crisis in your country, to have a conversation with Charlie Charlie Kirk call him and say that he needs to come to Israel to kiss the wall again? And presumably he said no. Am I missing something? Because a lot of the Israelis and their Hasbara agents online are saying, you can't talk about that. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're just trying to tie everything to Israel. No, this is a political assassination of one of the most famous political commentators in the country. I'm allowed to ask questions about whatever I want. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Do I think it's interesting that JFK's shooter was never found? RFK's shooter was never found? Princess Diana's murder was covered up? The 9/11 story was obviously covered up? Do I think it's interesting that the Epstein list was never released? Do I think it's interesting that this is all happening right now and the shooter's still not found? Yes, I do. And I'm going to keep asking questions.
Wow. And the one we should be asking ourselves, because I do not trust. Do you trust government? Do you trust the three-letter agencies? I believe the one they are standing up right now is the one they want us to know. And the fact of the matter is, if it isn't the right individual, the trust is gone. And that should still have us asking questions and pushing this forward. For freak's sakes, the steps outside of Charlie, but regarding Trump and voicing some it's setting the stage to expose the fingerprints that are all over Charlie's assassination. Let's listen to this.
Does the President of the United States fear for his life?
Yes. Yes. I mean, obviously he fears for his life. And I was told that he feared for his life before the two assassination attempts, one coming within a millimeter of striking his head. I mean, let's not forget about that.
But I mean, just to clarify, he doesn't fear for his life because of Ireland.
I mean, I've been told, yes, that Israel is a major source of concern for Trump. I mean, think about it. What would happen?
This is our ally.
If he suspended arms if he suspended arms to a country that carries out assassinations all across the globe, that specializes in assassinations, that has an entire wing of its intelligence services that conducts assassinations, including with household goods like pagers, I
had someone close to me talk about how brilliant of a move even that was. And my hands is to my forehead, like in shock. Do we even know, have any of us done the research of any of those individuals that were assassinated and murdered, set up with one of those devices? That in and of itself, when you step back from the propaganda and just all the labels of things and look at that act in and of itself, that is a terrorist act. There were civilians injured, hundreds of them. There was a 9-year-old girl, innocent. You telling me she was a terrorist that died to those terrorist attacks? That method is unacceptable. When there's any innocent lives hurt, how are we celebrating and putting brilliant labels? Just goes to show how much we've fallen from humanity within ourselves and fallen prey to the propaganda. We carry devices similar. How these very well themselves could be weaponized to that degree. That is horrible. That is a war crime in and of itself. But I digress. There's so many other things to uncover that just has been bottled up for some time. And we need to reflect in the mirror more.
Do you not be scared? So yes, Trump is scared. And what I learned from this source, who is a Trump insider, someone who talks to who talks to people in the Oval Office, people close to Trump, is that during one of Netanyahu's many visits to the U.S. this year, some figures in his retinue, Israeli agents, placed electronic devices on emergency response Secret Service vehicles. The Secret Service found them and they reported this to the White House. You know, these would be emergency response vehicles that would respond to an incident potentially involving the president.
Wow, that is incredibly shocking information and absolutely huge. Kind of honing in on bigger world threats. So here's some of the more recent. And it was, frankly, it was Charlie's blind allegiance to Israel, as though it's the biblical Israel. I could sit here and draw lines in the dirt, call it biblical things. Doesn't make it biblical. In my eyes, yes, there were land and certain things at certain times, but Israel more so depicts the kingdom of God than any lines drawn on a map. And we would be totally negating the reestablishing of those lines arbitrarily drawn in 1948 by none other than the Rothschilds. Look no further than Tel Aviv and the Rothschild Boulevard that exists, the HQ connecting to, anyway, you could just connect all this. It's such a deep, we just need to seek the truth for ourselves. And when you look at the genocide and the horrific atrocities and crimes committed daily, a whole people, women, children, murdered, assassinated through the most horrific means, hospitals, schools, all of them obliterated. Sniper rounds making it into these innocent lives. And I don't mean to get too graphic, but I believe this. It's not some rogue fringe LGBTQ. Such a joke. The world we live in. Unbelievable. But my heart goes out to so many of those individuals. They know not what they do. Don't understand the depths of evil's tactics to destroy the purpose of being here in the nuclear family. But he started asking some very powerful questions. This is what I believe is leading to the whole operation that took his life.
I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours?
Great
I don't believe
question.
It. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question.
Yeah.
The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and buy
the anti-Semitic
I've been to Israel many times.
Threats Charlie got and backlash, being the most staunch supporters of Israel, devout for years and years, blows my mind. Netanyahu isn't even a Semitic individual. He's from Poland. Netanyahu isn't even his real name. You can do that research yourself. But the deception runs so deep. A few days ago, Charlie Kirk was talking about releasing all the Epstein files. A few days prior to his death.
I think the DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Everything. Everything except child sexual assault material.
I think every file should be released to the public the same way as the JFK files. Let the American people decide.
Put them out there, because if there's nothing in there, then we can see there's nothing in there. Now.
I think the DOJ should.
Come on, we're supposed to believe these narratives of a 30-06 being disassembled and reassembled and left in the woods, and with this. How dumb do they think we are? This is there's so much deception, so we should be just asking. Wow, Charlie Kirk pisses off Israel. Let's just hear what Tucker had to say with Megyn Kelly.
He was one of the only people, I mean, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, like personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. I mean, boy, that was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country, and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. I mean, there are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the polls. And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. I mean, that's what's been snuffed out.
Well, as he has been, unfortunately, but he was one of the very few people I have met who combined a love for everyone involved with strong views. So again, he was not animated by anything creepy or weird. I mean, you knew him intimately, so you know this is true. If you talk to him off camera, he would say, I really, I love whoever I'm talking about, but I think this is wrong. It's immoral. It's bad for everybody involved, both sides. And he would say that, and he could say that because it was sincere. It was completely sincere, but I cannot overstate the amount of attacks he took privately over this, absolutely for real. And having lived in Washington most of my life and seen people run nonprofits, I've never met one who was willing. Stand up is too strong. He wasn't confrontational, but he would just say, no, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I think this is the right thing. The people we represent, which is mostly young people, they believe this, and I believe it also.
Asking some very basic questions.
Brave, but loving at the same time. And I'm not sure he made a lot of headway, by the way. I mean, I think he made real enemies.
He was just beginning.
In doing that, but
real enemies in doing that. Wow. Let's just continue. I have to bite my tongue to an extent because they're my views, and I want to express, and I will. Stay with me, whether it's this episode or diving more in depth futuristically. But this information here does a good enough job really raising the questions. If it's gonna go, let's try clicking that again. Is it already taken down? Another one. Oh my gosh, come on. Really? Is it too soon to just
if you want to know
what's going on
behind the Charlie Kirk assassination?
Yes.
You can't turn to the media or to the government. We've been lied to about JFK, MLK, the shooting in Butler, the shooting in Vegas, vaccines, Epstein, and countless other events. So what makes you think that this time around they'll tell us the truth? But let me tell you the indisputable facts. This event was carefully planned. Yes. It was a professional marksman that aimed perfectly at the neck, so they wanted to make a gruesome statement that free speech is no longer safe. It's not a coincidence that seconds before he got shot, the trans debate was taking place. And a few days before that, he was raising doubts about the US government being owned by the Jewish lobby. This event is perfect to raise the hate bar between liberals and conservatives. And if God forbid something happens to a liberal political figure, then this could lead us into civil war. And it will give the people in power every reason to crack down on free speech and take away our Second Amendment. They want us to fight amongst each other. We have to be smart and see clearly even with all the emotions. Let's not be silenced. Let's not be divided. And like Charlie, let's keep fighting for our values.
Yes. So beautifully said. Yeah, rest in peace, brother. Now, before we really go in, he brought up one of the points, and whatever. I'm getting ahead because we're going to be getting into some of the information that makes, like, the fingerprints on the very situation regarding his assassination. And my goodness, already the narratives, the patsy, I mean, they had a guy actively saying, shoot me, knowing this is a right-wing gun-toting that's the type of people Charlie attracted. What? And that individual happened to be also placed in one of the bombings and 9/11. And anyway, there's just so much going on that we cannot fall prey to this wrongful information. But you can see my bow here, and one of the things people aren't talking about that I've just recently been humbled. See, I'm not even comfortable on full screen. I'm just I'm not cut out for this. But dang it, we lost one of the courageous individuals, and more people gotta step up and try to fill these shoes. But so many people are talking about 200 yards. What an easy shot with certain rifles and sights. And yes, I understand that's pretty basic for even a lot of military folk. But there's military folk that understand you cannot train for taking another human life. So now it shifts. It doesn't matter how much training you take. It didn't matter how many arrows I slung behind the bow when it came to being in front of these majestic, beautiful creatures, seeking a pure harvest and the respect I have for them. You cannot teach what happens within the body, the anxiety, the heart rate. They call it buck fever. What seemingly a 10 out of 10 type of situation at the range seemingly becomes impossible. I can speak on this just from the hunting aspect firsthand regarding an animal that God gave a steward over versus a human life versus a public setting. Could you imagine how much that would ramp things up? Being in a public setting and taking someone's life. Could you imagine how much more it would be knowing there's a chance you don't walk away from this? That you yourself get killed. That you yourself end up imprisoned for life. That is not an easy shot at all. The only ones that would be able to truly execute it would be real assassins. I digress. I've got questions. This is a really good list here. I won't go through it all. But the link is in this episode. But questions about Charlie Kirk's assassination. He used to be a loyalist. He used to be an Israel loyalist. He feared Israel would kill him. By the way, that statement is true. And there's a lot of individuals that surrounded Charlie that has expressed that. And that, on this topic, is personally the only level of censorship I've experienced. And I can prove that in some of these next links to come. But isn't that interesting It's like they're really trying to control that aspect of this narrative. He started mildly criticizing Israel. He said Epstein was Mossad. He started asking about Epstein. Anyway, this list is very powerful. But it, he sums it up here. But I'm sure it was just some random liberal kid. No, it wasn't. That's what they want us to believe. This gentleman, this young man, very well done. In fact, he walks through it, and I think this is going to skip a lot of the things that raised my eyebrow, because he goes through so much of it. This is so powerful. You want some answers? We're not going to get them all. But to just point out the lack of trust and how we must get that fixed in our nation, in this world. It was Barack Hussein Obama that stripped the legalities from Western media being able to lie to we the people, allowing them to spew propaganda. And anyway, that's enough from me. Just check this out.
Did Israel kill Charlie Kirk? The alleged shooter is now in custody, turned in by his own father. Case closed, right? A lone gunman, a young man chasing infamy, the assassin of one of America's most popular political activists, the most viral political assassination in modern history. But there's an issue, a very serious issue. Given how authorities have handled this investigation, we can't treat their information as concrete. So it begs the question, what if there is more to this story? Shortly after Kirk's assassination, speculation of Israel's involvement spread like wildfire. The claims were so viral that a Newsmax journalist was forced to ask Benjamin Netanyahu himself during an interview where he appeared agitated and nervous as he denied the allegations.
Before I let you go, I want you to address one thing, and it's just the absurdity of it, some of the internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder. And, I don't believe it for 1 second, but I want you to, make a statement. It's so absurd.
That's insane. That's insane. It's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying that. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get to the bottom of this.
This speculation about Israel being...
I have to cut in there. I did need to step out. Nature called. That was not a man's response. That, to me, says guilt all over. My hand wasn't in the cookie jar. How dare you? His was. Wasn't me. No. A true friend of this individual, as he's portraying to be at this point, just trying to emphasize cover up, wouldn't even have humored that question. Think about the psychological behind all that. Like, that was a child response. Not humoring that question. Focusing on what took place. The loss, the grief, the purity of a situation. That's a friend. This was not. Netanyahu, unbelievable. Just saying, throwing it out there. The individual that in his book prior to 9/11 said if America doesn't take the Muslim threat, terrorist threat serious enough, the Twin Towers will fall. Yeah, the whole narrative. I mean, never forget. Oh, we've forgotten what really has happened. A lot of us, too many of us, believe the propagandist lie, the mainstream media, the same ones, safe and effective, the same ones that lied to us, the same ones. We're seeking out so many, or too many. And that's the purpose of this episode, that we don't fall prey and look at our neighbors as though they're our enemies when we have 100% an enemy out there that is intentionally turning us against each other. Totally stripping us of the one solution we have through unity.
behind Charlie Kirk's assassination came across as absurd to many people, myself included, given Kirk's history of loyal servitude to Israel and the Zionists. I mean, what motive would Israel have for killing their own loyal subject? But then came this bombshell. Journalists Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil revealed Kirk was beginning to break ranks with the Zionists. He was questioning Israel. He was refusing Zionist money and platforming critics. And for that, he was met with intimidation and backlash from powerful Zionist figures. He was afraid of them. In this video, we'll dive into the article, lay out the claims, and we'll confront the very important question. Was Charlie Kirk's assassination just the act of a lone gunman? Or was it a violent coup by Israel to gain control over the most influential conservative organization in America? There's a famous expression in Latin dating back to the classical period when attempting to identify criminal suspects. Cui bono, or who benefits? This question comes to mind when considering whether or not Israel is responsible for arranging Charlie Kirk's assassination. To even consider whether or not Israel may be responsible, you first have to believe that they somehow benefited. Therefore, for Israel to benefit from Charlie Kirk's assassination, Charlie Kirk would have to no longer be of benefit to Israel. To many, including myself, Charlie Kirk was a loyal and beneficial propagandist to Israel. He spent his entire career spreading the myth of Judeo-Christian values.
This country was founded on a Judeo-Christian construct, which is a gift from the Lord, and we must honor that.
He routinely claimed Israel was America's greatest ally and propagated the false claim that Palestinians never existed.
What you trying to say?
I don't think the place exists.
What?
Because it doesn't. It's called Judea and Samaria. It's not called Palestine. It's a non-existent place.
All of this serves Israel and Zionism. And the organization he founded, Turning Point USA, received tons of financial support from Zionist donors, including the David Horowitz Foundation. He repaid his wealthy backers over the years by unleashing a relentless fire hose of anti-Palestinian and Islamophobic diatribes, accepting propaganda trips to Israel, and sternly shutting down nationalist forces challenging his support for Israel during TPUSA events. So the idea that Kirk was somehow becoming a threat to Israel was absurd. But as many social media users have pointed out, Kirk was, in fact, showing signs of evolution. The same kind of evolution that saw personalities like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Megyn Kelly, to name a few, change their tune in regards to America's relationship with Israel. According to the Gray Zone, as Israel's genocidal assault on the besieged Gaza Strip drove an unprecedented backlash within grassroots right-wing circles, where only 24% of younger Republicans now sympathize with Israel over the Palestinians, Kirk began to shift. At times, he towed the Israeli line, spreading disinformation about babies beheaded by Hamas on October 7th and denying the famine imposed on the population of Gaza. Yet he simultaneously ceded to his base, wondering aloud if Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli intelligence asset, questioning whether the Israeli government allowed the October 7th attacks to proceed in order to advance long-term political goals, and parroting narratives familiar to his most vociferous critic on the right, streamer Nick Fuentes. Back in July, Turning Point USA held a student action summit for young conservatives in Tampa, Florida. As head of the organization, Kirk would decide who to platform at this event. In a decision that enraged Zionists, Kirk decided to platform Israel critics Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and comedian Dave Smith. At the event, Tucker Carlson made several incendiary comments, taunting the Zionist billionaire Bill Ackman.
How did Bill Ackman get $9 billion? Bill Ackman, a pretty impressive guy? I know Bill Ackman. No! Bill Ackman's like well-connected and super aggressive. That's it.
And even suggested that Americans serving in the IDF should lose their citizenship.
Because you can only really pledge your loyalty to one person or one country. That's just a fact. Like anybody, by the way, who serves in a foreign military should lose his citizenship immediately. There are a lot of Americans who've served in the IDF. They should lose their citizenship. You can't fight for another country and remain an American, period.
Megyn Kelly suggested that Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli Mossad agent.
So he was an American, which leads basically three options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about
My hand's
half
raised.
the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
And Dave Smith heavily criticized Israel's genocidal actions in Gaza.
Because it's not a war, it's the destruction of a captive people. Gaza's been occupied since 1967 by the Israelis, and they're now just slaughtering the people there.
On social media, Zionists went into a frenzy, denouncing Charlie Kirk as a traitor. The Jewish Zionist Laura Loomer tweeted, "After this weekend, I'd say he has revealed himself as a political opportunist. Lately, Kirk has decided to behave like a charlatan. It really is shameful, and honestly, I am just disgusted with the constant flip-flopping on the right." In the Times of Israel, a blogger called Kirk out for promoting anti-Semitism. Quote, "Charlie, what are you doing? You know the difference between good faith critique and coded anti-Semitism. When people obsess over AIPAC while ignoring Qatar, China, Saudi Arabia, the UN, that's not objectivity. That's targeting. Leadership also means knowing when a conversation is no longer a conversation, it's manipulation. It's how the seeds of Jew scapegoating get watered, not by swastikas, but by just asking questions." Finally, she warns, "Charlie, don't abandon your post. You've stood for truth when it wasn't easy. Stand now with Israel, with reason, with your own better judgment." And the Jewish Zionists Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro also voiced their displeasure with Kirk over who he platformed at the summit.
We, you and I, had people who we thought were conservative.
Of course, Fox
sound
News.
a lot like the Marxist Islamists who were attending this event last week, don't they? They find that conservative groups and conservative organizations that have these weekend events and these seminars, whether they're for young people or think tanks or that sort of thing, they sort of sprinkle these events with these kooks, with these American haters who claim to be American firsters and are fake MAGA. And
all the labels. This is the deceivers. And they're... Who knows if they know what they do, but they're doing it for the paycheck.
even stabbed the president in the back.
I mean, I think it's definitely an attempt by some of these organizations to, quote unquote, maintain the big tent. The problem with a big tent is that you may end up with many, many clowns inside.
But the backlash against Kirk wasn't just happening in public. It was being done in private as well. According to the Gray Zone article, Kirk was bombarded with infuriated text messages and phone calls from Netanyahu's wealthy allies in the US, including many who had funded TPUSA. According to his longtime friend, the Zionist donors treated Kirk with outright contempt, essentially ordering him to fall back into line. He was being told what you're not allowed to do, and it was driving him crazy, Kirk's friend recalled. The conservative youth leader was not only alienated by the hostile nature of the interactions, but frightened by the backlash. And apparently, Kirk wasn't just disturbed by Zionist donors or leaders here in America that were calling and texting him. He was feeling the heat from Israel itself through its war criminal president, Benjamin Netanyahu. Kirk rejected an offer earlier this year from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to arrange a massive new infusion of Zionist money into Turning Point USA, America's largest conservative youth association. In the weeks leading up to his September 10th assassination, Kirk had come to loathe the Israeli leader, regarding him as a bully. Kirk was disgusted by what he witnessed inside the Trump administration, where Netanyahu sought to personally dictate the president's personal decisions and weaponized Israeli assets like billionaire donor Miriam Adelson to keep the White House firmly under its thumb.
Which gave this administration and President Trump directly hundreds of millions of dollars, more than 230 million accounted for, something along those lines.
To Kirk's friend, who also enjoyed access to President Donald Trump and his inner circle, Kirk strongly warned Trump last June against bombing Iran on Israel's behalf. Charlie was the only person who did that, they said, recalling how Trump barked at him in response and angrily shut down the conversation. The source believes the incident confirmed in Kirk's mind that the presidents of the United States had fallen under the control of a malign foreign power and was leading his own country into a series of disastrous conflicts.
I get it, folks. It's a fire hose for some of you. For a lot of you, this is about time, or where have you been? But frankly, there's just too many that still blindly follow the false Israel narrative due to the infiltration. I mean, golly, the devil is the deceiver. Why wouldn't he, throughout all these generations, embed himself into all our organized religions, hold the 501c3 statuses over their heads, get them to tout this new established 1948 Israel as though it's the Israel of the Bible, as though that's the Semitic people, as though that's God's chosen people. Have you seen the footage as to how they treat Christians there on the streets? What they think, and not all of them, but regarding Jesus? Yeah, there's a lot of deception.
By the following month, Kirk had become the target of a sustained private campaign of intimidation and free-floating fury by wealthy and powerful allies of Netanyahu. Figures he described in an interview as Jewish leaders and stakeholders. He was afraid of them, the source emphasized. The reports of this fear are consistent with other claims made by sources also close to Kirk. A month ago, Harrison Smith, a well-known media personality and political commentator, tweeted out that someone close to Charlie told him that Kirk was worried Israel might kill him for criticizing them. I'm not gonna name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. And Charlie himself...
That's the message on my platforms that already got censored. Why is that? Truth? Let's say lies don't end up censored like that. They don't. Only truth. Look no further than the pandemic. Ivermectin, these bioweapon shots called vaccines. Unbelievable.
Told Megyn Kelly a month before his assassination that he was afraid.
But I am sick of being lectured on like, you have to see it exactly as we see it and support everything, or you're against us.
I got texts about you, Megyn. Why is Megyn like doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megyn's the best. And I said, why are you texting me about Megyn? This is what they don't understand. You and I, Megyn, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker. The more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction, because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay? On some part of the population, you can scold them into silence.
He was waking up.
If I have any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megyn, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly?
Good question.
I'm an American, okay? Like, I represent this country. The more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megyn, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too, though, right? These are stakeholders, right? I'm afraid because, again, I want civilization to win. I feel the connection to Israel, but at the same time, simultaneously, when the hostile reaction is that now Megyn and Charlie are enemies,
right?
Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're gonna weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues.
Now, you might think it's weird that Israel would go to such lengths as to kill a former ally for even beginning to question them. But as several social media users have put it, given the influence and power Kirk had on over 3,500 college campuses across the country as the director of Turning Point USA, the very possibility that he could flip on them was a dangerous threat. The mere possibility that Kirk could start down the same path as Tucker and Candace is enough to send shivers down the spine of any Zionist with half a brain. Losing Kirk, even to a moderate degree, would represent a devastating blow to the Zionist power base in America. Zionist concerns over Kirk's leadership of Turning Point USA, an organization he founded, have been brewing for some time. Over a year ago, Ben Dominic, a co-founder of The Federalist, wrote, "If Charlie Kirk remains the head of TPUSA, the right has an anti-Semite problem." And a few weeks ago, in the Times of Israel, Jewish Zionist Daniela Bloom wrote, "Turning Point must continue to be a safe haven for aligned pro-America, pro-Israel Jews on campus and for future generations. What we have established here is a consistent thread of Zionist outrage over Charlie Kirk's platforming of Israel critics and concerns over his leadership of TPUSA, the most influential conservative organization in America. You see, Turning Point USA isn't just another conservative group. With over 3,500 chapters nationwide, its conferences became the beating heart of Republican youth politics. Charlie Kirk developed it into a machine that energized young conservatives like no one else. Wow. Even Donald Trump credited Kirk and TPUSA for his election victory, calling it your victory, not mine. This is why the stakes were so high for the Zionists. If Kirk had continued drifting toward criticism of Israel, it wouldn't just be another commentator questioning Zionism. It would mean the entire conservative youth movement could begin shifting its views. Unlike Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, or Nick Fuentes, who can be dismissed as fringe and independent commentators, Kirk and TPUSA had mainstream power. They organized the grassroots. They had access to the White House. That is exactly why Netanyahu offered to bankroll TPUSA, to make sure Kirk never turned that influence against Israel. As the founder of this organization, rejecting this funding essentially denied Israel the ability to gain leverage as leader of the organization. So without access, they couldn't threaten to remove him from the position. And when gangsters can't buy you or control you, well, they kill you.
Kid, you work it out any way you want, but nobody's backing out of the deal.
Mr. Cinelli, I'm sorry, but the bottom line is I'm not selling the company to you.
All of us are humans. Do not take our word for it. Take Jesus' warning in Revelation 2 verse 9 and repeats himself in Revelation 3:9.
I'll tell you the fucking bottom line, laddie buck. The Barone routes are now Cinelli routes. That's that.
The world we live in, I swear.
So even though Kirk routinely amplified Israeli propaganda, simply questioning Israel's actions in a critical light seems to have been a step too far for Zionists who have lost virtually all support from young Republicans. In Charlie Kirk's final interview, he raised what can only be described as the gentlest of questions with Ben Shapiro about ethnic cleansing in Gaza.
We've pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, so maybe we should also ask a question, is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says because...
Wow, his face is like, you seriously asked that question? Wow.
I know, I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years. So, Ben, some people would accuse Israel of wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people in the Israeli government are saying, again, it's all over the place, right? You have opinions all over. In your opinion, what would a good outcome 5 years from now be, and how does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
24 hours later, Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck and killed. With Kirk now dead, Zionists began covering up this tension and claiming he was a loyal friend of Israel until the very end. Netanyahu first tweeted prayers for Kirk at 3:02 p.m. in the afternoon on September 10th, minutes after news of the shooting broke. He has since authored 3 additional posts about Kirk, even breaking away from the Israeli war cabinet to spend the afternoon of September 11th memorializing the conservative leader on Fox News. During that interview, Netanyahu did his best to insinuate that Israel's enemies were responsible for murdering Kirk, despite the fact no suspect was named or in custody at the time.
The radical Islamists and their union with the ultra-progressives, they often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies.
None of this, of course, is concrete evidence that Israel was behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But what this does reveal are 3 important facts. The first is that Kirk was beginning to criticize Israel, even if it was too soft, too little, too late. The second is that Charlie Kirk was growing frustrated over Israel's attempt to control what he says and who he speaks to. And the third is that the Zionists were also incredibly frustrated with him and worried about his position as the leader of TPUSA. So when it comes to the famous Latin expression, cui bono, or who benefits, There is evidence to believe that Israel and the Zionists do. Within 24 hours of Kirk's death, Shapiro announced that he would be launching his own campus speaking tour, vowing, "We're gonna pick up that blood-stained microphone where Charlie left it." But what do you think? Is there anything that I'm missing? Let me know in the comment section. And of course, don't forget to read the article by The Gray Zone, which is linked in the comment section below. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and donating to keep me going.
Yeah, that gentleman's link right there in the description below. Now, I'm already well over time for today, and I'm feeling the exhaustion. And frankly, I need nourishment. So I'm going to do my best just to kind of get through a lot of this. Charlie Kirk isn't the first of them, folks. There's so many of them, but listen to how bold and blatant this is by Rockwell.
I am going to expose what the Jews are doing to back integration, race mixing, and these race riots. And I think when the people find out that the Jews are behind it and have financed it, I think the people are going to understand why the Jews don't like me.
How are you going to expose it? What specifically?
Would you want the world to go to war, sir? I don't want the world to go to war. I want to stop the riots. I want to stop the exploitation of black people by the Jews for the purpose of destroying the American constitutional republic. I am going...
Now, it's not all running under that label, folks. That's why we got to see past the label. We got to see people for their actions, for the fruits of their being and what they do. This goes through. I want you guys to do this dive yourself. But the setting up of the question and the talking points at the specific time Charlie was murdered, not coincidence. The symbolism between multiple individuals, the one individual standing with clearly something in his hand, and the way he conceals it. Watch the body language of so many of their individuals post the assassination and after the assassination. This was for sure a operation, not a standalone rogue loon. No way. When you watch all this information here, you just can't. And then the patsies, like, he even goes through the information asking like uncensored AIs and this and that. It's a 1 in multiple billion chance of this just being like so many of the singularities of the situation being just coincidental. It doesn't happen. Yeah, we're not going to go into it. So much of this. I mean, they walk through. They even show the certain symbols done. Being military, sniper, just... You got to see all this information for yourself. Obviously, from a questionable character, we're all questionable characters. Who are we? As though, I am a defective sinner. We all are, and we all fall short. That's why we need Jesus more than ever in our lives, daily. But I'm sure you've come across this before. It's a very powerful clip. And I just want us all to ask ourselves, are you for sale? Oh, what's our price?
Is it 10 million? Is it 20 million? Is it 100 million? What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale. If your price is not your life, then you are for sale. So, if you're going to be a truth teller, your price has to be your life. I can't surround myself with people whose price is not their life, because the enemy, whatever the enemy is, whether it be physical, legal, spiritual, will attack the vulnerability of the person who can be compromised. So you get real spiritual real fast if you're going to do this type of work. What is
insanely powerful to pose these similar questions? See the truth? Undoubtedly, evil will run rampant on those. However, I find it insane not to. There is no glory to be had. Focusing on the rat race of this life. That is not the meaning and purpose. Understand the power of the nuclear family and your children and the duties and responsibilities. But then again, if everyone had that and we turn the blind eye to evil, evil wins when good men do nothing. For freak's sakes, I've been diving in on the example God gave us in clearing the slate multiple times with humanity. And it didn't just solely, my belief, have to do with the sin running rampant, the sin becoming so powerful, the sinful, and the ruling that the agency of futuristic generations was completely at risk. There wasn't a proper opportunity to even the scales. So God stepped in. The only difference, I believe, with the God promise, with the rainbow and the symbolism of never again, is because he gave us this information to be the checks and balance. And we are egregiously falling short. And the majority of Christian churches are also falling short, more so, being pressured into teaching the turning other cheek versus the godly nature of maintaining the healthy balance and the agency he wants us to have in this life. And we are being so pressured from so many different, every single angle is Americans in this country in this time, from taxation, oppression, censorship. We can't even fathom these potentials to be true, because if it's true, what does that mean? I must do more as a man, as a father. What I've formerly been engaged in, it's like we're lying to ourselves as though I'm doing all I can do to secure my child's future. But it's only through the rat race. And what does that matter when our bodies, our minds, our spirits are being overtaken by this evil? There's an unplugging from the rat race that is some of the greatest blessing I've even personally experienced in this life as well. Charlie's not alone. This is a list of 230 journalists murdered by the Israel terrorists in Gaza who Charlie supported. In fact, this is nearing 300 documented murdered journalists. That's more than World War I and Vietnam combined. And most people don't even understand and haven't grasped what's really taking place. This young lady, we'll play this real quick. Yes, I agree. You got to see past the hair, the tongue piercing, but her words, I feel she was inspired in this to create this. I don't know why it always starts.
Messages for President Trump and his administration. If you stay to watch the video, please tag him down below, share, and repost so we can try to get this to him as quickly as possible and hope that he can do something with this.
Yes.
President Trump, as a supporter who voted for you 3 times, I am hoping and praying that you will revisit what Barack Obama and Joe Biden got rid of back in 2013, which is the Smith-Mundt Act, which held news corporations accountable for lying to the American people and spreading propaganda instead of truth. I think instead of bringing it back as a Smith-Mundt Act, you name it the Charlie Kirk Act, you make it a law, and you make it damn near impossible for these people to continue to lie.
Agreed.
To the American public, which has brought chaos, hatred, division, and anarchy all across this country. Fines out the ass, which will damn near bankrupt their company should they lie to the American people ever again.
Yes.
They can have their opinions, that's fine. They need to state that it is their opinion and that it is not a fact.
Agreed.
Because of their constant lies, a man lost his life over it.
Right.
Because of the constant hateful rhetoric of calling him a fascist and a Nazi and a white supremacist and a bigot.
I believe it's bigger than all that, hun, but I agree. President Trump, what are you going to do? Were you really friends with that man? Is that just an act? Or is that... Convince me you're not an actor, sir. Convince me. You've been in that realm your whole life, and you've done a really good job. And I was willing up to a point to believe in 5D chess, 5D space chess, Q, all of that to an extent, as though your hand was forced regarding warp speed and you were given a bad choice or a worse choice, and you chose the better of the two. However, no, you're still touting it to this day, sir. And the cover-up of Epstein shows it all. At this point, prove you aren't complicit. You aren't implicated in that. As the billionaire, obviously womanizer, we all knew you were for a long time. But you formulated the words that won over our hearts. It's as though this elite group has you in the vice, and you are serving the very same slave masters as the administration before you, Barack Hussein Obama's slave masters, Bush's, dating way back. Prove us wrong. Are you Team Humanity? Why are you allowing that one industry immunity? Why are you allowing us to be the second country in the world that allows that industry to even spew its propaganda, aka advertising and marketing regimes? It's all been a bare minimum to keep us complicit. There were a lot of promises. Epstein was one of them. Day one. And now you turn against your own supporters, saying anyone that has to ask questions, you're stuck on that still? You're really stuck on that? I don't want your support anymore? Really? You're willing to die on that hill? Tells me one thing. That you are implicated. And there is a plethora of other evidence out there, testimonials and individuals stating they were sold by you. They were stolen by Epstein from the Mar-a-Lago at a questionable age. You stated that yourself, sir. What is going on? We know the evidence is overwhelming. He was a Mossad agent. Former presidents, Bill Clinton, 30 plus records of visiting. How boldly he was posted on the wall there in a painting in a woman's dress, as though it tells us one thing. Former president of this country, they had by a firm grip. Prove me wrong. Release it all. You won't. And you'll die on that hill if you're implicated. That's it. And that was the final straw that broke the camel's back for me, realizing how powerful the synagogue of Satan has become in today's day and age. We rely too much on a presidential figure, too much on the infrastructure to our own demise as a people. And we must unite and abolish it, and we can do it without violence if enough of us unite. Just to point out, this man shows our oppressors, our murderers, that we haven't been a free country for a very long time. Check this out.
1913 was the year we actually lost control of our country.
Agreed.
Right? Oh, and just for historical context, World War I started in 1914. I mean, look, I'm sure that was a coincidence, but let me just tell you all the things that were created in 1913. First, the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor has any reserves. It's basically a private bank that just controls all of our money. Second thing created in 1913 was the IRS. And I'm sure it's just a coincidence that it was created the exact same year that a private bank took over all of our money. Yeah, I'm sure it's a coincidence that that was the year they started taxing you. Like, you work, they print, and then you pay them back with interest. Yeah, that makes sense. The next thing created was the Rockefeller Foundation. Yeah, and let's be real, that was all about philanthropy. It's not like they took control of medicine, education, science and
all of it.
Basically the health of the world. I mean, let's be real. All they were doing was donating money. Yeah, it's not like they were buying control of everything. Oh, and that worked out so well, right? Because people are healthier and more self-sufficient than ever, right? Oh yeah, also in 1913 was the American Cancer Society. I mean, that sounds like a good thing, right? That can't possibly be bad. Except it was completely funded by extremely wealthy people. But even though it was a charity, they never really gave to anyone. No, they just took their money and invested in pharmaceutical drugs. Oh, and chemo. Yeah, instead of taking that money and investing in companies that were trying to find a cure, no, we'll just invest in companies that use chemicals from the military that were later banned. Yeah, that's a good thing to keep fucking putting into people. Then also created in 1913, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which sure, yeah, it's about civil rights. Yeah, totally. It's not about censoring people or, silencing critics. And then in 1914, we had World War I. And that became the first war ever that private industry profited from war. The private industry that's owned by the same families that created the Fed, the IRS, the Rockefeller Foundation, the American Cancer Society, the ADL. Again, just a coincidence. Oh, I'd also like to point out that a year prior to 1913, 1912, yeah, that was when the Titanic sank. And it's funny how three of the wealthiest individuals on that ship were the loudest voices opposed to central banking. Oh, and there's also the little tidbit that J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on that boat, but he canceled at the last second. But yeah, that's conspiracy. That's tinfoil hat talk. So what's happened since 1913? Well, the dollar has lost 99% of its value. Our debt has just become like a number that we ignore. Middle class getting fucked daily. War is now an industry instead of a conflict. Oh yeah, and your money isn't real anymore. Like, it's just not real. It's not backed by anything. It's just numbers on a paper that private bank prints. So guys, look, if you're worried about America being conquered or, a rebellion or it being taken over, you guys know that 1913 was the year
I'll wrap it up for him because probably had to censor that out. Probably got banned. We already are a conquered, occupied, controlled country. 100%. And it's been more than clear with this administration. I don't understand why I get it's a very, very hard pill to swallow. The false idolatry of the orange man at this point is just mind-blowing. He hasn't been on Team Humanity. And I'm fed up. Like, the Epstein was enough. Oh, God. This is we'll play the first little
every aspect
section
of our lives.
Every aspect.
They've taken over our schools, churches, politics, media, music industry, bank, financial industry, food industry, every three-letter government agency.
Everything.
Realize how closely involved Planned Parenthood is with.
And is it this specific individual and these people? No, it's the label they're running under. There's not a bigger victim than the purists that are bearing good fruit running under that same label. Yeah, well, how is that an anti-Semitic thing to say? Anyway. This is proof. This is disgusting. It's very hard to watch. A lot of the things that come out, but it's existing. It's not being banned. It's not being shadow banned. That's enough. And there's more disgusting things, obviously, than that. I'm sure you all have come across. But this tells us, this proves to us that it's nothing tinfoil hat about a ruling class over us controlling these mega platforms to our demise, to our detriment. Because life-saving things, loving things were banned, shadow banned. I experienced it myself. I got lists very long regarding good content being taken down as hate speech, hateful. This tells us all we need to know. There is a ruling class, 110%. In fact, this account no longer exists. What was this? This was over one of the posts. So these other two links still exist. It's just the one regarding how Charlie, people close to him, were exposing he was fearing for his life due to the questions he was posing against Israel. And this deceitful idea of Israel today. It isn't the biblical Israel. Another one, same thing. But do not be disheartened. We just got 2 quick things, but let this embolden you. Look at what they are trying to silence. Look at who's behind just that. And even worse, manipulating us to silence one another. This is a powerful one. Please at least take some of these golden nuggets and spread them far and wide. It doesn't have to be with all my interjections and all my flaws. I'm full of them. But check this out.
Agree? Does not mean I'm a Nazi.
Yes.
Just because we see the world differently does not make you any less of a human in my eyes. And just because we may be going down 2 different roads in life does not mean either of our voices ever be silenced. Because disagreement is not destruction. Debate is not hatred. Conversation is not violence. We were built on dialogue. Before laws, before nations, back when we would first all gather around a fire so we could all survive the dark. It is the threat of society that turns strangers into neighbors, opponents into partners, and those fractured people whole so they could endure. Dialogue is where we sharpen the truth. It's where we test the weight of our ideas against others. It's where we understand comfort is not an agreement. It is the courage to stand in the storm of disagreement, but still walk out and call each other human.
Yes.
Dialogue is not danger. Silence is the danger. Because the fear of silence grows teeth. Silence is where lies turn into power. Silence is where the slow suffocation of people no longer trust themselves to speak. Look back through history. When has silence ever saved us? It gave the rise to tyrants. It made your neighbors shut their blinds while their streets burned. And it turned ordinary men into accomplices because when they should have said something, they said nothing!
Love it.
So speak. Speak when your voice shakes. Speak when your words are clumsy. Speak when the room glares at you. Because dialogue is your only proof you are still free. We do not have to agree. We do not have to see the world through the same window.
Right.
But if we lose the courage to talk to one another, then we lose the right to say we are alive and still free. Silence is death. Dialogue is life. And every word spoken in truth, no matter how raw, it is that spark that keeps the fire of humanity from going dark forever. Just because we disagree.
Wow. I don't need to cover anything. Just please absorb that. Listen to that back 3 different times. Send that to loved ones. Get their thoughts. That lights a fire in me. I don't know where to go. Okay, here. Yeah, I can't even explain. Words don't even do it justice. And I'm at a loss for words, so I'll just read in the post, rest in peace, Charlie. None of us will fully get it right in this life. You had more courage than most. And I hope your example lights also a fire in more hearts and spirits to speak up with no fear. This is the man. This is... just in loving memory. This is the hole that's now left.
Possible? Well, I would say you need to understand the biblical role of the father. When it comes to your child, you are tasked to protect them both physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and really outside the house and obviously in other ways as well. Quality time is everything. You're not above any of the duties or the tasks or the roles. And it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And so again, I speak very directly to young men. Erica's the, young woman outreach part of this. But young men need to be talked this way, actually, because they say, oh, I want to be a dad. Like, really? Are you earning enough money? Have you done the right work? Have you asked for a raise, asked for promotion, got up earlier, stayed up later to make sure your family does not have any financial pressures or issues? Because here's the one thing I have found. Once you have kids, there is this primal thing that comes into you where if you think you have worked hard before, when you have to go feed a child and provide for a family, you are willing to go to the ends of the earth and push yourself in ways that you never thought possible. Possible. Well, I would say you need to understand the biblical role of...
Glitched out there a bit, but what an amazing man. He's left some pretty large shoes to fill. I feel 100% inadequate. I don't believe there's really any one individual. I believe it's the recent questions he started posing regarding the synagogue, the very synagogue of Satan Jesus warned us of, once again in Revelation 2 verse 9 and 3 verse 9, that led to his assassination. Evil could not allow this man to continue. However, we can continue his work in those questions, and that's the purpose of this episode and futuristic episodes moving forward, given God grants me the function and ability to continue. I was playing a lot of my violin personally as of late. Lots of issues. It even has manifested in my skin. I'm going to have to wear some long sleeve for some time now, considering the havoc evil has been able to inflict on this body, mortal body I have. I just pray you all are able to maintain the level of health to keep a lot of this sheer struggle at bay on your journey in this life. However, no matter what may come your way, this has been a blessing, and with Charlie Kirk's example and what's taken place has really smashed that violin. I have nothing to play. Let's kick off some more so inspiring music here. Just a bit of a recap. We must stop playing into evil's hand and stop using the verbiage of left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, red versus blue, the labels, the thinking, the ideology, the terminology, full stop. Truth is, both of that construct is equally corrupt. All corrupt. So why would we fall prey to that level of think that is leading to our demise when, after all, we have more in common with one another, the leftists, the rightists, than the ones inflicting this level of oppression and psychological warfare on one another? And we expose just that in this very episode, that it isn't a tinfoil hat conspiratorial thought. It exists, and it's dividing us, and it's conquering us. What are we going to do with it? Yeah, I love how we worded it. We have more in common with anyone who voted differently. We are one people. We are not two tribes. The only solution we have is us, we the people, God's children, through unity in this life to secure a future. Remember, sanity is contagious. Leave you with an affirmation. I am not programmable. Not today, Satan. And don't be programmable. I'll leave you with this final thought. What is your pledge? Oath? Give me some of your affirmations. Reach out. UNMUZZLEDchat@gmail.com. If you'd like to guest on the podcast futuristically, reach out. Follow, share, check out the affiliations. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. I don't feel sufficient. I don't feel as though I am cut out for this. Lyme disease, after all, is impacting my neurological, my physical, my life force, my everything. But it's cool when you tap into these things bigger than yourself. It comes from somewhere. And I want to say that's from God. I want to say that's from good. Stay in the light, my brothers and sisters. Keep your head up. All isn't lost. You have no idea the impact you yourself could have. Try it. See what you could do. Love you. Until next time. Take care.